Hey everybody, welcome to Cross the Ditch NC. My name is Laura and I'm so glad you're here today. I hope you will join me. Stick around as I plant our fall garden. I'm getting ready to plant some lettuce, another round of cucumber because since I've already started them from seed under my grow light, we have enough days in our growing season left before the first expected frost to get another round of cucumbers out, as well as tomatoes. So join me as we plant the fall garden. All right, so this is romaine lettuce that I started from seed about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It is grown, it is healthy looking, and it is ready to be planted in the garden. So I'm gonna plant it right here. I'm just gonna dig a hole deep enough. I'm gonna get some of my leaves untangled. I've already amended my soil. If you haven't seen that video, be sure to go back and watch it. But I'm gonna take my little romaine seedling here, and I'm just going to dig a hole. Come right here. Dig a hole just enough that it reaches the top of the seedling. Start top of the dirt. Give it a little firm push, and there you go. I'm going to do that with the rest of my romaine lettuce here. I'm going to do an offset, so I'll plant another one right in here, right next to the cicada skin. I'll do another one right here, and then I'll offset and plant one right there. That way I can maximize our space. See if I can get you guys back adjusted so you won't fall down. I'm still learning this camera stuff, so bear with me. Alright, so romaine lettuce doesn't require a whole lot of spacing. If it is your first year gardening, I always recommend you following the spacing recommendations. That way, if you space things a little bit too close together and your garden does not thrive, I don't want you to get discouraged. So your first year gardening, follow all the rules. And then thereafter, you can play around with spacing and see what works for your garden. It really all depends on the plant and the nutrients in your soil and the space that you have. So I tend to crowd my lettuce. Lettuce does not mind being crowded as long as it doesn't develop a big head like a cabbage does. For those, you do want to give it adequate spacing. However, romaine grows up and not so much out, so it is perfectly fine to place those, at least in my experience, it's fine to place those a little bit closer together than usual. Now, romaine lettuce, all lettuces are cool weather crops, hence why this is part of our fall garden. It is still really hot where I live in eastern North Carolina, so I'm going to put a little shade tunnel over this so the sun does not bake it. Plus, I have it in a little bit shadier part of my garden. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon and the sun is just now getting full force onto this part of the garden, so I'm not worried about the sun cooking these plants too much. Once the weather cools off a little bit and some of the insect pressure goes away, because another good thing about these tunnels is they protect your plants from insects. But once the pest pressure wears off and the temperatures begin to cool off, then it will be fine to take that protection tunnel off for a little while. However, when you are expecting a frost, your lettuce can keep growing. You'll just need to cover it up because depending upon the type of lettuce it is, it may not like a heavy frost. All right, there you go. That is my Coastal Star romaine lettuce seedlings. I got the seed from Haas Tools. You can look them up online. I've had a lot of great success with their seeds. I started these about 3 or 4 weeks ago underneath my grow light. They're doing great. Now I've got a plant. I have them planted out in my garden. They are in a shadier part of my garden, but I still put a little bit of this shade tunnel over top of it. It'll help keep a lot of the bugs out that want to eat the lettuce, and it'll also provide a little bit of shade and moisture retention for the lettuce during the hottest parts of the day until my temperatures start to cool off. All right, I'm gonna plant our cucumbers. Got our soil amended. My cucumber plants are a little bit too big for the small area that I have them, or the small little pots that I have them planted in, so their roots kind of got bound up. I'm just going to give them a little crack here and hope that it doesn't affect them. And my leaves are starting to yellow a little, so I'm hoping that getting them out of those tiny pots and into this soil will revive them just a little bit. And yes, a lot of people think it's weird to plant cucumbers in the fall garden. However, our expected frost date, or our average predicted frost date, is October 31st. I'm in zone 8A. And because of that, we have, and I started these from seeds several weeks ago, because of that, we have enough time between now and the expected frost date to hopefully get another crop of cucumbers in. Now, does that mean that we're not going to get frost until October 31st? No, we could get an early frost, and if that's the case, at least I tried, right? You don't know until you try. So I'm going to put these right here on my trellis and hope that they grow up the trellis and give us at least a few cucumbers before the next frost hits. It never fails. Every time. Hey everybody. I'm hoping, after doing a little bit of research, to get a little bit more information on it. Educate myself a little bit more. I'm hoping maybe next year I can save up and get a drip irrigation system for our garden. That way we can more efficiently water our garden. Overall, end up using less water because it's more of a targeted watering. And I don't have to stand out here with a water hose every day and water the garden. There for a while, we were getting a good shower at least once a day or once a night. But over the past 2 weeks, we have had rain twice, and it rained just enough to make the dirt on your car spot up, and that was it. At least here where I'm at. Other areas in the county that I live in have had quite a bit of rain, but right here where I live, we haven't had much rain at all. But yeah, this insect protection fabric is permeable, so the water can get through it and get to the plants, but it protects the plants from bugs. It provides a little bit of shade and protects them from the intense sunshine as well. Carolina Reaper is doing good. We planted this pretty late in the season, so we haven't harvested anything yet. Look at that. Super excited to harvest the peppers off of this. I like spicy, but not quite that spicy. So my husband I guess I should say, is the one that's looking forward to me harvesting the peppers off of that plant. Watering the cucumbers that I planted today in our freshly amended soil. There's the okra back there, a good drink. It's very thirsty, they are wilting. Which, sometimes you can overwater your plant. I try not to, but don't get too discouraged. Sometimes when the heat is as intense as it is on a day like today, you know, it's 95, 98 degrees with a heat index of 110 plus, you can't water the wilt out of the plant. It is just hot, and there's nothing really you can do for it at this time. When I come out here in the evening times, even before I water them, they look a lot better just on their own without me even watering them. They'll perk right back up. It's just the heat of the day puts them into a little wilt. So tomorrow we are going to plant some more green beans, snap beans. And one of the ways to get the green beans to germinate a little bit faster is to soak your beans in water overnight. So here I have some beans. I already have some in my cup, but here I have my beans. I'm going to put them in my cup with some just lukewarm temperature. Sorry, the dogs are not happy with each other right now and barking. But I have just some room temperature water in this cup. I'm going to take the beans, the dried beans, and put them in this cup and let them soak in the water overnight. They'll expand a little bit, and then I will plant them in the ground tomorrow, and they will germinate a little bit faster using this method. And when purchasing beans, once again, I always support shopping local. I actually purchased this bag of green beans this year at a local farm supply store. This is your standard like brown lunch bag, I guess you could say. And when I purchased it, of course, it's torn in half, and that was my doing. But when I purchased it, I purchased 1 scoop, which was about a pound or so of beans, and it filled up nearly half of that lunch bag. I have planted 2 rounds of green beans so far. This will be my 3rd round of green bean planting, and we have enough days between now and our predicted first frost that we'll get another harvest in, unless we just have an abnormally early frost. But I still have a ton of green beans left. I have enough that I can plant 2 or 3 rounds of beans again next year, and that is how much I paid for that bag of green bean seeds. So once again, I support shopping local. Check with your local farm supply store, see what seed they have available, and buy from them. That way you're supporting your local economy, you're supporting a local farmer, and you can get the seed a lot cheaper. There is a handful of green bean seeds. Once again, that's probably all I'm going to be able to plant in the area that I have right now. But in the morning, I will show you what this looks like once it has soaked overnight, and then I will take you along with us as we prepare to plant them. All right, so here are the green beans, the bush beans that I soaked last night in water, so it would allow it to germinate a little bit quicker. We have come to the big garden, and we have pulled the majority of the weeds and have amended the soil with some granular fertilizer and raked it in real good. And now we're going to go plant our beans and give it a good water. All right, so once you have figured out the seeds that you want to plant in your garden, you want to look at the information on the pack of the seeds, particularly if you have never planted that plant before. That way you plant it correctly. Once again, if this is your first time gardening, you definitely want to follow the rules and the recommendations on the back of your seed packets and plant the way that they recommend planting the seeds. And the reason that is because you do not want to get frustrated if you have a crop that has some issues or fails because maybe you crowded your plants, or you didn't fertilize them appropriately, or for whatever reason. So if it's your first year gardening, follow the rules that are on the back of your seed packets. Once you get a feel for gardening and you learn what works in your soil and what doesn't, then you can start experimenting with spacing. I am notorious for breaking the rules when it comes to spacing the plants in my garden bed. I tend to crowd my plants. Reason being, I know that when I amend my soil, I do a fairly good job of it, and that there are plenty of nutrients in my soil to support the plants as I'm growing them. And the plants that I really do tend to crowd are ones that I grow up a vine, because I know that some of the spacing requirement on the packages takes, or grows up a trellis, because some of the spacing requirements on the package is meant to account for the vine spreading out on the ground. So if it's growing up a trellis, you can plant them a little bit closer together. But you really, if it's your first year, you really do want to follow the rules on your seed packet. That way you have a great first experience with gardening. And thereafter, just experiment a little bit with spacing. Don't go too crazy. You know, if it says plant at 12 inches apart, don't start planting them 4 inches apart, because that ain't gonna work even if you are fairly experienced. But I'm gonna plant my my sugar snap peas. I got these at Johnny's Seed Company. And when you get your seeds, look at the back. You want to read the information on the back really well. It gives you a germination rate. So with their seeds, they have an average 97% germination rate, which is pretty awesome. Seed specs, it says for these, my rows should be 24 inches apart, and I should plant them approximately a half an inch to an inch deep, approximately 3 inches apart, which is how I do plant these anyway. It recommends inoculating your soil because these like nitrogen, so you want it to form the nitrogen nodules on the roots of the plant. So it's good to have a little bit of nitrogen in your extra nitrogen in your soil when planting these sugar snap peas. It goes into talking about support. If the gets above 3 foot tall, it's great to trellis them. I'm going to grow these on the back, or the fencing panel that we have put up here that we grew our Kentucky pole beans on during the spring and summer. It says to plant this plant 2 months before the expected fall frost. So where I live in zone 8A in the northeastern part of North Carolina, our predicted frost date is October 31st. Now it could frost before then, or it may frost, you know, after that, but that's the average predicted first frost date. So we are in that time frame to go ahead and plant these. Then it talks about harvesting, how to know when it's ready, and then it goes into telling you about disease and pest resistance of this. When purchasing seeds, one thing I will tell you is if you have the option of deciding between, you know, 3 different varieties of a sugar snap pea, I would definitely go with one that has somewhat of a disease resistance to it, because it'll make your garden life a lot easier. So this is resistant to powdery mildew, which is a major problem where we live because of the moisture and the humidity in the air. It just creates the perfect environment for powdery mildew to form on our vining plants. So this does have a resistance to powdery mildew, so I'm super excited about that. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these put in the ground. So what I'm gonna do, I don't use any fancy tools. I'm gonna try to turn you here without making you fall, and I'm failing miserably. Where are we at? Right here. All right, so I have my amended soil here. Just gonna kind of smooth it out a little bit because I didn't do a very good job smoothing it out earlier. I like to get my hands dirty. A lot of people wear gloves when they garden. That's personal preference. I have been asked why I don't wear gloves, and I just say because I like to get my hands dirty. And I do pay for it sometimes because I may have like, you know, skin reactions to some of the oils, like when I cut okra and stuff, it cuts up my wrist, but that's okay. Anyway, I'm just gonna take my fingers and I'm gonna go down about an inch or so. When you're planting and it's hot outside, it's like 90 degrees out here right now. So when you're planting, it don't hurt to plant it just a little bit deeper. So this recommended like half an inch. So you won't, I'm gonna plant it at the inch mark. That way, the top of the soil, if it gets too hot from the sun, it won't affect the germination of this. So I'm going to dig down about an inch or so, and then go about 3 inches over and dig down another 3 inch, or not 3 inches, another inch or so. And then just going to drop my seed down in there. When you read the recommendations on your seed packs, it may recommend thinning the plants out once they start coming in. So just keep that in mind. But once you get your plants in there, cover them up, give them a light pat. Don't compact that soil real hard. Just give it a light pack down to cover it. And then once you get all of your seeds planted, you're going to want to water them really well and keep them watered daily, particularly in these hot days when the soil is drying out, because you want them to germinate. But I'm just going to keep planting these seeds until either I run out of seed or I run out of space on my fence panel here. All right, so the next crop that we're going to plant are carrots. I planted some for the first time this past spring and had a little bit of success with them, but I didn't know much about planting carrots and how to do it so successfully. So I spent some time this summer doing some research on how to successfully germinate and grow carrots. So we're going to give it another go this fall. Apparently carrots grow really well in the fall. You just have to make sure that the seeds stay in place, and they stay moist, so they will germinate. Carrots are cool weather crops. They do not like the summer heat, so that is why they are planted in early spring and in the fall. So today I'm going to be planting some Hass Bolero. I might be saying it wrong, but the Hass Bolero carrot, and then we are going to be planting the Burpee Kaleidoscope carrot blend. So this will definitely be an experiment to see if I can do it right this time, and I'm going to bring it along with you, because that is one thing about gardening, is you're going to have a lot of success, but you're also going to have failure as well. And I fully intend to show you my success, but I also want to show you my failures and what I have learned from my failures. So hopefully next time I'll make that failure into a success. So one of the things that I learned with carrots is you need to start out with loose, moist soil. Carrot seeds are really tiny and they tend to blow away pretty easily and wash away really easily. So there's a trick that I'll show you here in a minute on what I've learned on how to keep carrot seed in place. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a little bit of dirt and I'm going to just kind of rake just the top, like a 1/4 inch of dirt. I'm going to rake it to the side. Carrots do not like to be buried very deep. They are root vegetables. So the part of the plant that we want to eat from is the root, the part that grows underneath the dirt. I will say that their leaves are absolutely beautiful. The grand total of 3 carrots that I got to grow this spring, the roots themselves were absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to take my hand in here and kind of break up this dirt. I let it get dry the other day, so it started getting hard, and that is not something that we want. So I'm going to break up this dirt just a little bit. Try not to disturb the area. I just planted peas on the back side of this row, so I don't want to disturb them. Alright, I'm going to smooth this out so that dirt will be easier for the carrots to grow in. Alright, smooth that out. Kind of pile up that layer of dirt I talked about raking to the side. Pile it up over here. Get me a nice even surface. So everything I've read so far with carrots, you can take them and sprinkle them in real lightly, try to give them some spacing, or you can actually go in and space them individually. I'm going to take the little bit easy way out, and I'm going to sprinkle them in there, and then I'm going to go back as the carrots begin to grow and then thin them out so they'll have room to grow and they won't get too crowded. So I'm going to start with my Haas Tools Bolero carrot. These seeds are so tiny, and I want to show you, but the wind just started kicking up, so I'm going to leave them in the bag to show you. Oh, can't even get them to show you in the bag. Oh, damn, wind. I don't know if y'all can see that, but they're really tiny seeds. So I'm just going to very lightly sprinkle them in the sand, or not in the sand, but in my dirt. I'm trying not to crowd them. I want to get somewhat of a spacing. There's a group over here that got put together. All right, that's all I'm going to do of those, and then I'm going to do my kaleidoscope blend right next to them. See if y'all can see these now that the wind's calmed down. See how tiny those are? Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to take these, try to space them out a little bit, but just lightly sprinkle them around in this area. All right, so once you get your seeds, either you can space them out like 1 to 2 inches apart, or you can just sprinkle them in there, and then as the carrots begin to grow and you see the foliage come out the ground, you can start thinning them out. Like I said, I just sprinkled mine in, but what you want to do next is just take that dirt that you brushed to the side and very, very lightly, just barely cover it. Carrots do not like to be very deep. They don't even like a 1/4 inch of soil on top of them, just a very light dusting. Some people put their carrot seeds in the ground and set a board on top of them and leave it that way. I am going to put a little bit of dirt on top of them. So maybe I'll have a fighting chance. All right, so like I said, carrot seeds tend to wash away with a good rain if they're not rooted real well first, or they tend to blow away. So I put the light layer of soil on top of it to hopefully keep them from blowing away, but to keep them from washing away, I'm going to set a board on top of them. This will actually, what I have read, once again, I've never tried this before. I did not have a successful carrot crop in the spring, so this will be my second time trying carrots, and I hope that it will be successful with the things that I've learned and am going to try today. But the reason for using the board is to keep the wind and the rain from affecting the carrots too much. Carrot seeds like to stay wet to help with germination. They do have a longer germination period. So the board, because it still is kind of hot out, will help retain that moisture in the soil. And also, if we get a heavy rain, which we're not predicted to get a rain for like another week, but when a rain does come in, if they have not germinated and started rooting really well yet, then the board will help keep these carrot seeds from getting washed away. So I'm just going to take my board and place it on top of the area that I just planted my carrot seeds. Just like that. And hopefully that will keep them from getting washed away whenever we do get a rain, hopefully in a week. I'd like for it to be sooner, but hopefully that'll help protect them. So by what I've read, using this method, just after about a week, you're going to come back and just lift the board up and see if you see any little green leaves poking out from underneath it. If you don't, just put the board back down. If you do, and they're still really small, really immature, then what I've read recommends putting like a rock under each end of the board and lifting the board up just slightly, so it's still protecting the carrots from heavy downpours, but it's giving those leaves room to grow up until they get, you know, about 1 inch or 2 tall, and then you can take that board off completely. But I will show you in future videos the progression of this and just keep you updated on whether or not it has worked. But yeah, we have carrot seeds planted. I do succession planting in my garden, so I have planted peas this week, which peas will continuously produce. It's not like a one and done kind of deal, but like my lettuce, my broccoli, my carrots, I've planted all of those over the past couple of days, which you will see in the video. And then I'm going to plant some radish and a few other things here in just a little bit. But I plant those this week, and then about another week or two, I'll plant another round, and I'll continue doing that until it starts getting too cold to plant. And that way we'll have a continuous supply of vegetables. But like I showed you in previous videos, there's another cicada. One thing I failed to mention when talking about planting the carrots, once you put that board on top of it, you do not have to remove it to water the carrots. The water will leach in underneath through the soil, so you don't have to pull the board off when you're watering your garden. The soil will get underneath it without any issues. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to plant in our garden is Calendula. It is a beautiful flower. The cool thing about this plant is it attracts beneficial insects to your garden, but also you can dry the flowers and you can use it in personal care products like face cream and stuff like that if you make homemade face cream. So we've never done that before. I'm looking forward to trying that this year, but I'm going to go plant these in the garden. When you plant these, you want to plant them about 6 inches apart, and I'm just going to plant them in random areas in the garden. I'm not going to do it in just one section. I'm just going to kind of randomly drop seeds into the dirt and cross my fingers and hope they grow and produce some beautiful, beautiful flowers for us. Calendula is a spring and fall crop, so it does like the cooler weather, and these are frost tolerant, so they may, after a light frost, they'll still be there, but of course when you get that hard frost and freezing, most likely they won't last after that. But let's go plant some of these. And I got them covered up. I had to put some around my rooster though, because I always like putting flowers around him. All right, so the last thing I'm going to plant today are going to be radish. I love radish. I love radish just as much as I love okra, and so that's why I'm excited for the fall to come around, because it's going to cool off and it'll be cool enough to start planting or eating radish again. So when I plant radish, I plant them about 1 inch apart. I grow so many different types of radish. As I begin pulling them and harvesting them, I'll tell you the types that they are. Radish are really easy to grow. You literally just put them in the dirt and then keep them watered and watch them grow. And then when they get to the desirable size, then that's when you harvest them. Usually I'll take my finger, if they're not sticking out of the dirt, I'll take my finger and just stick in the dirt next to the stem and just kind of feel around for the globe forming. And depending upon what size it is when I'll harvest it. But I'll show you that when the radish get ready to be harvested. But right now I'm going to go ahead and start planting some seed. And I'm going to plant it in a shadier area of my garden, because once again it is still pretty hot out right now, though the temperatures are finally starting to cool off a little bit at night. I am going to put these in a little bit shadier area of my garden so they don't get too hot during the day and it doesn't make my radish bolt, which means it goes to seed and then I don't get any fruit off of it, or I don't get eat the radish itself. So I'm going to plant them about 1 inch or so apart and put them about 3/4 inch deep into the soil. And I usually do 2 rows, like in the garden bed right here. I'll go to the front of the bed because on the back panel here is where I have the sugar peas. So along the front half of the garden bed is where I'm going to plant my radish. Alright, so what I did, I don't know if you can see it too well, I just quickly dug 2 little trenches in the garden where I was going to plant my radish, and then just dropped my, sorry, I got distracted, I had a fire ant bite me. Dropped my radish seed about 1 inch apart. So there's one right there. There's another one, so there's one, there's one, there's one. And so now I'm just gonna lightly cover them with some dirt. Give it a good water. Told y'all I was gonna do 2 rows and that's what I did. Give them a gentle pat. Give a good water, and I should see those germinate in a few days and hopefully have radish within the next few weeks that we can eat. I'm going to mark off the area of my garden bed, so from here to there I'm going to mark it with probably some rocks or sticks just to remind me where I planted radish at, because I'm going to come out here about every 4 to 5 days and I'm going to plant 2 more rows of radish. That way I can do the succession planting, so we'll have a continuous crop of radish. Alright, so this is the end of what I am calling Planting the Fall Garden Part 1. I still have a ton of seedlings left to plant, as well as some seeds to direct sow. I will definitely take you along for that in Part 2 of Planting the Fall Garden. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned something about planting a fall garden. In years past, I have had one, but it has been very small scale. So this year, where we're doing the entire garden as a fall garden, I'm super excited to do that and take you along with me. I hope this encourages you to plant a fall garden as well. If you do, let me know and let me know how it goes. Once again, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a blessed day. Please come back to see me again.